I disappeared for 3 years. Here's what it costs me. Sometimes God doesn't just restore what you lost. He uses what you lost to teach you what you could never have learned any other way. 3 years. Think about that for a second. 3 years. That's 36 months. That's 156 weeks. That's over 1,000 days. Over 1,000 opportunities. 1,000 chances to show up. 1,000 opportunities to create, inspire, to serve, to obey. And for most of those days, I was silent. Not because I had nothing to say, not because I stopped believing in the vision, not because God changed his mind about my assignment. I fell silent because somewhere along the journey, I let the noise around me drown out the voice within me. And that's a dangerous place to be, because purpose rarely dies in one dramatic moment. Purpose dies quietly. It dies in postponed decisions. It dies in repeated excuses. It dies in the comfort of I'll do it tomorrow. And before you know it, tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And next month becomes next year. Then one day you wake up and realize you've disappeared from the very place where God intended you to make an impact. Welcome to Thrive Steps. If this is the first time listening, I'm honored that you've chosen to spend this time with me. If you've been here before, welcome home. I owe you an explanation, but more importantly, I owe you the truth. Today's episode is not about making excuses. It's not about defending my absence. It's about exposing the invisible enemies that quietly steal purpose from our lives. Because here's what I've discovered. The greatest battles you'll ever fight won't happen in front of people. They will happen inside your mind. For 3 years, there was one question that kept coming to mind. Usually late at night, sometimes while driving, sometimes while sitting alone after a long day. That question, it will whisper, what happened to Thrive Steps? At first, I would answer confidently, I'm just taking a break. Later, my answer will change to, I'm really busy. Then, I'll be back soon. Eventually, I stopped answering the question because deep down, I knew I wasn't telling myself the truth. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to lie to yourself? Not intentionally, not malicious, just gradually. We become experts at creating explanation that protects us from confronting reality. We rename fear as wisdom. We rename procrastination as preparation. We rename comfort as peace. We rename inconsistency as waiting on God. But eventually, truth catches up with all of us. When Thrive Steps began, it wasn't just another podcast. It wasn't a content strategy. It wasn't something to keep me busy. It was born from conviction. I genuinely believe that people don't transform overnight. Growth happens through intentional, consistent steps. That's why I called it Thrive Steps. Initially, it didn't start as Thrive Steps. It started as Daily Dose. From Daily Dose, we metamorphosed into Victor Inspires. From Victor Inspires into what we have now as Thrive Steps. Not giant leaps, not overnight success. Steps, small steps, faithful steps, intentional steps, because every extraordinary life is simply the result of ordinary decisions, repeated consistently over time. That vision burned inside me. Every episode felt meaningful. Every conversation reminded me why I started. Then life changed. I accepted a role serving in church. It was a meaningful work, important work, kingdom work. The responsibilities increased. People depended on me. The schedule became fuller. The demands became heavier. And gradually, without realizing it, I convinced myself there wasn't enough time. Now, let me pause here a bit because I want to be honest with you. Time wasn't actually my biggest problem. It was my easiest excuse. There's a difference. Can I tell you what I think is one of the most dangerous words in the English language? The word later. L-A-T-E-R. Later. I'll start later. I'll write later. I'll apologize later. I'll launch later. I'll pray later. I'll record later. I'll become disciplined later. That word has buried more dreams than failure ever has. Because failure teaches, later deceives. Failure forces you to grow, later convinces you there's always another opportunity. The cemetery of unrealized potential is filled with people who intended to start later. So during those 3 years, I learned something that changed the way I understand prisons. You need to understand that there's something called the invisible prison. And usually we think prisons have walls. You're right. Iron bars, locked doors, security cameras. But I've come to believe the strongest prisons are invisible. There is the prison of fear, the prison of self-doubt, the prison of comparison, the prison of perfectionism, the prison of guilt, the prison of regret, the prison of I'm not ready. And perhaps the most dangerous prison of all is the prison of excuses. That's where I found myself. Nobody locked me there. Nobody forced me inside. I walked into it one thought at a time, one excuse at a time, one postponed decision at a time. The frightening thing about a mental prison is this. You can smile while living in one. You can attend meetings, go to work, serve in church, help people, even appear successful while remaining trapped inside your thinking. That's exactly what Proverbs 23 means when it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. In essence, you are the sum total of your thoughts. Your life eventually moves in the direction of your strongest belief. If you believe you are stuck, you will act stuck. If you believe tomorrow is always available, you will postpone today's responsibility. If you believe you are waiting on God, when in reality, God is waiting on your obedience, you will remain exactly where you are. So looking back, I wish someone had sat me down and asked me one uncomfortable question. Victor, what exactly are you waiting for? Not what are you doing? Not what are you planning? Not what are you thinking? But what exactly are you waiting for? Because sometimes we say we are waiting for clarity when we are actually afraid of commitment. Sometimes we say we are waiting for resources when we are actually avoiding responsibility. Sometimes we say we are waiting for God's timing when God has already spoken. Here's something I've learned. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. That truth moved me because I realized I wasn't lacking revelation. I was lacking execution. I wasn't lacking ideas. I was lacking consistency. I wasn't lacking purpose. I was lacking discipline. And those are two very different problems. There's a quote that hits me hard one day. When you're interested in something, you'll do it when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses. That exposed me. I realized something uncomfortable. I still loved the vision, but I had stopped protecting it. Purpose isn't enough. Passion isn't enough. Talent isn't enough. Calling isn't enough. The reason is, without discipline, none of them survive. So, if the story ended there, this would be the story of a man who stopped creating. But that's not the real story. The real story is what those 3 years quietly cost me. Every decision has a price. Every delay leaves an invoice. And the most painful cost wasn't the number of podcast episodes I didn't record. It wasn't the audience I didn't grow. It wasn't the visibility I lost. The greatest cost was the person I was slowly becoming. Every day you neglect your purpose, you slowly disconnect from the version of yourself God is shaping you to become. And that's where we'll continue in the next episode, where I'll be sharing you what it cost me. The cost of silence is always greater than the comfort it promises. See you in the next episode.